Alright, so let's mess around with HDFS for Reels. Now what we're going to do is actually upload some of that movie ratings data that we downloaded earlier from the MovieLens dataset into our HDFS file system on our little virtual Hadoop box. So let's go ahead and open up the virtual box and we will start our Hortonworks sandbox. And that'll take a minute or two to boot up, so go ahead and hit pause and resume once you're ready, once you see the screen that says that everything's ready to go. Alright, so after a few minutes you should see a screen that looks like this, more or less. Now I'm going to show you a little bit of a shortcut here. Even though it says to connect to 127.0.0.18088, we're going to go straight to the Ambari view by going to port 8080 instead. So let's bring up your favorite web browser here. And type in 127.0.0.1:8080, okay, just like that. And you should see a screen like this. And again, we'll log in as Maria_dev and with a password of Maria_dev as well. And here we are in the Ambari view, which is sort of our way of looking across all the stuff installed on our little Hadoop box here. So, we talked about all these technologies in our earlier lecture where we sort of did a quick overview of everything, and here they might make a little bit more sense now. So we talked about HBase, we talked about Pig, we talked about Scoop and Uzi and Zookeeper and all that stuff, but for now we're going to talk about HDFS. So you can actually click on that and just get some information about the file system itself. You can see that we're actually running a name node and a data node, both obviously on this same virtual machine, but if you were on a real cluster, of course, those would be on two different computers. Okay, so we're going to be talking to our name node and our data node, in sort of a virtual sense here while we're playing with HDFS. Now to mess around with it from a UI, it's very simple. All you have to do is click over this little grid icon and go to Files View, and this will show you in a graphical manner our entire HDFS file system that's running on our little Hadoop cluster here. Well, our cluster of one virtual machine, such as it is. But it would work the same way in a real cluster. So we can, for example, click on User and click on MariaDev to see MariaDev's home directory. And let's go ahead and create a folder for our MovieLens data. So we can create a new folder just by clicking on New Folder. And we'll call it ML-100K, just like that. So remember, that's the 100,000 ratings data set from the MovieLens website. So let's talk to the name server and said, hey, we're going to create a new directory. And the name server says, okay, here you go. So we can go into that and we can actually hit the upload button to upload files from our hard drive. And we can just drag them in there or click there and navigate to it. So if you want to do that and navigate to wherever you downloaded and extracted the ML100K data set, you can, for example, upload the u.data file into there. And what happened there, like we talked about, it talked to the name node, said, hey, I need to create a file. Where should I put it? It said, put it on this data node. And there's only one data node, so that's where it put it. If we had more than one machine, though, it would actually start replicating that data across multiple data nodes and then acknowledging back through us and then finally back to the name node that that data had been successfully stored. Let's also update the upload the u.item folder file as well and see what you can do. So you can actually do pretty much anything from the UI that you can do from the command line or anything else. So I can, for example, click on u.data and click on open and actually see what's in it. So here we have a little view of the contents of this data file. Again, it's the user ID rated this movie ID, a given rating from 1 to 5 at a given timestamp, and you can scroll down there and look at all 100,000 ratings if you want to. You can also rename that file. Let's say we want to call it ratings.data. And basically just everything works as you would expect it to here. There's a couple of cool features though. You can download that to your local hard drive if you want to. Let's go ahead and do that. Open it up. There it is. We got our data back from HDFS. So what we've done here is we've uploaded data from our hard drive into an HDFS cluster of one, and then downloaded it back to our hard drive, and we got the same file back. So it works. You can also do something kind of cool if you want to. You can actually select more than one file using the Shift button there and concatenate them together. And that would actually download a single file containing the contents of both of those files. So if you were to open that resulting file up, you'll see something like this, where it starts off with all 100,000 movie ratings and ends up with the u.item file, which is mapping movie IDs to movie names and genre information and whatnot. Now let's go ahead and clean up after ourselves. So I still have those two selected. I'm going to click delete to get rid of it. And then I'll go up a level back to my home directory for MariaDev and select ML-100K. Notice I'm clicking over here as opposed to on the name itself. So instead of navigating into it, I'm just selecting that row, and then I can hit delete. And let's hit delete permanently just to make sure we cleaned up properly. So there you have it. You know, we're actually playing around with HDFS through a web interface. So this is using an HTTP interface to HDFS that allows us to manipulate and view all the files in our HDFS file system. It's actually really, really easy. That's all there is to it. I mean, it's hardly even worth talking about. So let's go a little bit deeper in our next lecture and actually mess around with doing this from a command line, from an actual command prompt connected to our Hadoop cluster. Now, if you do need to take a break right now, I just want to mention real quick, if you go back to your virtual machine here, you can always shut that down cleanly by going to Machine and then ACPI Shutdown. That's kind of how you're going to close down this session, this actual virtual machine, cleanly before you start it up again. So make sure you always do that as opposed to just closing out of it forcibly. Okay? So next lecture, let's do this in the hard way from the command line interface.